At a film conclave in Kerala this week, Adur Gopalakrishnan, one of Indian cinema's most celebrated directors, stood before an audience and delivered a speech. A speech laced with casteist and elitist remarks.
എൻ്റെ ജന്മകാലത്ത് ഞാൻ 2 കോടിയിൽ എത്തിയിട്ടില്ല എൻ്റെ ഒരു പടത്തിന്. പക്ഷേ അതേസമയം ഗവൺമെൻറ് ഷെഡ്യൂൾ കാസ്റ്റ് ഷെഡ്യൂൾ ട്രൈബിന് കൊടുക്കുന്ന ഒരു പടം എടുക്കാൻ കൊടുക്കുന്ന തുക 1.5 കോടി രൂപയാണ്.
He criticized Kerala's decision to fund a few Dalit and Adivasi filmmakers with 1.5 crore rupees each, saying that the money would lead to corruption and that the amount should be slashed to 50 lakhs so that they understand the difficulties of filmmaking. He also said women should not be funded unless they trained enough. He then remembered why they increased the delegate fees for the Kerala Film Festival. It was apparently because once workers from Chala tried to sneak into a theatre to catch a sex scene.
ചാലയിലെ തൊഴിലാളികളുടെ ഒരു സംഘം തന്നെയായിരുന്നു. അതിന് മുകളിലത്തെ വാതിലിങ്ങനെ കൊട്ടിയെടുക്കാൻ തള്ളി തുറക്കാൻ വേണ്ടി ശ്രമിക്കായിരുന്നു.
High delegate fees will ensure that those who can't appreciate cinema will be kept out of film festivals. All this was neither a slip of tongue nor a joke. It was caste prejudice set plainly into a mic at a state government event. And this isn't the first time Adur has courted controversy with such statements. The acclaimed director who made Vidayan a strong critique of feudal caste oppression is now embodying it. But Adur's words are a reminder. Caste has always shaped Malayalam cinema, even Tamil cinema. Not just on who gets to act or direct, but whose stories are told, who gets erased, who gets to decide what counts as good cinema. Of course, that doesn't mean there haven't been efforts to challenge it. There have. But the fault lines have always been there. From Malayalam's very first film, Vigatha Kumaran, to present day. Let me explain. When a legendary filmmaker says only the culture deserves cinema, it's not just a careless remark. It reveals how deeply caste and class shape who gets to create and consume art. More diverse voices are entering the industry, but exclusion still thrives. The silences are loud and deliberate. At the News Minute, we believe journalism should confront these silences and not ignore them. We report what others overlook and spotlight voices pushed to the margins. If this matters to you, then do support us. Become subscribers of the News Minute by scanning this QR code or clicking the link in the description. And this will help keep independent journalism alive. First, let's go back in time for a bit. Malayalam cinema's first film was made by a dreamer. In 1928, J.C. Daniel, a dentist with no studio or backers, sold his wife's jewelry to make Vigatha Kumaran, the lost child. And he made a radical choice, casting P.K. Rosi, a poor Dalit Christian woman, as the lead, playing a Nayar woman on screen. Of course, this was enough to spark outrage. At the theatre, the dominant caste audience pelted the screen with stones. They couldn't tolerate a Dalit woman acting as a so-called high-born heroine. And it didn't stop there. Rosie's home was set on fire and she was forced to flee the state. The film was destroyed and the reels disappeared. And P.K. Rosie, the first heroine of Malayalam cinema, was erased. So when Adur Gopalakrishnan today argues that women and SC/ST filmmakers need intense training before making films, that funding them directly leads to corruption, he isn't speaking from a vacuum. He's drawing the same line that forced P.K. Rosie out of cinema nearly a century ago. The line between who gets to tell stories, who must be first trained, filtered, and kept in their place. Adur's words sting because they come from someone often described as the conscience of Malayalam cinema, a master of realism, a Dada Saheb Phalke awardee, a man whose films are taught in schools. But here, what he defends is not art, it's exclusion. Now, of course, all of this is not to say that there haven't been artists from marginalized communities, but their journeys have rarely been smooth. The late Tilakan, one of Malayalam cinema's most towering actors, often spoke of a Nair lobby, a network of influence he believed controlled opportunities in the industry and subtly kept out lowered caste backgrounds. Despite his immense talent, Tilakan alleged that a powerful lobby sidelined him, cost him roles, and punished him for speaking out. Still, he carved his own path. In a quiet, ironic twist, the roles he came to embody, the proud patriarch, the Brahmin priest, the feudal landlord, were often the very symbols of caste power that the industry once tried to gatekeep from people like him. But not everyone could push through like Tilakan. The late Kalabhavan Mani, an extraordinary artist from a Dalit background, was poised for a similar greatness. With his mimicry, his singing, and his deeply rooted charisma, Mani was adored by audiences, not just in Kerala, but across South India. The industry rarely let him be the sophisticated romantic hero. When he did get lead roles, they were often low-budgeted productions. These experiences reflect a deeper structure, one in which caste operates not only through outright exclusion, but through quieter forms of containment. Some artists are celebrated, but only within limits. Others are embraced, but not fully. But many never make it at all. In fact, for decades, Malayalam films didn't just ignore caste, they glorified it. Through the 80s and 90s, some of the most iconic mainstream films like Dhruvam, Aryan and Mahatma didn't simply feature dominant caste characters, they celebrated caste pride. They framed reservation as a burden and they demonized marginalized communities. And no one questioned it. But of course, that was then. Old films are being rewatched with sharper eyes. Memes, trolls, critiques, and essays have exposed the biases that went unquestioned for decades. No filmmaker perhaps has faced this retrospective more than Priyadarshan. Audiences are now asking, why do his protagonists almost always belong to privileged Nair caste? Why do certain dialogues glorify caste while mocking others? Take Chandralekha, where Mohanlal's character says he's a Nair from a good family, prompting Innocent's character to respond to that, saying that he at least doesn't belong to a venomous caste. What is that venom? And who decides whose blood carries it? These are uncomfortable questions, but they are necessary. They are possible now only because the industry itself is changing. New production models and a growing fatigue with formulaic superstar vehicles has opened the door for different voices, younger, sharper, and more rooted in lived experience. This decentralization has allowed stories from the margins to come to the fore. Films like Kammattipadam, Imayu, Kumbalangi Nights, and Pada don't always name caste outright, but they center the lives of people who were long pushed to the edges of cinematic narratives. And in some films, caste is confronted head-on. In Puru, directed by debutante Ratina, Mammootty plays a privileged caste police officer consumed by paranoia, caste pride, and control. It's a shocking turn. A superstar portraying not a heroic patriarch, but a fragile, bigoted man unable to accept his sister's marriage to a Dalit man. But of course, not every film that features Dalit characters offers liberation. Nayatte, a tightly crafted political thriller, is a striking example. It follows 3 police officers, 2 of them Dalit, on the run after an accidental death is pinned on them for political gain. At first glance, it seems like a searing indictment of a broken system. But look closer, a troubling pattern emerges. The film frames Dalit political assertion as dangerous and opportunistic. Dalit protesters are shown to be volatile and easily manipulated. In trying to appear neutral, the film ends up reinforcing caste stereotypes. Of course, change has been slow in Malayalam cinema, especially when you compare it to what's happening in the neighbouring Tamil Nadu. Over the last decade, Tamil filmmakers like Pa Ranjit Mari Selvaraj and Vetrimaran have brought anti-caste politics to the forefront of popular cinema. Movies like Karnan, Asuran and Jai Bhim didn't just talk about caste, they centered Dalit characters, histories and resistance. These weren't just powerful movies, they also shook up how caste could be represented on screen. But this wave too has been met with resistance. Films like Draupadi and Rudratandavam pushed the opposite narrative, glorifying dominant caste pride, spreading hate, and attacking intercaste love and affirmative action. And even in films built to dismantle caste, the gaze of dominant caste audiences can still flip the script. Take Mamanan, directed by Mari Selvaraj, for example. It's meant to critique feudal caste power, centered on a Dalit MLA. He faces oppression from his dominant caste rival Ratnavelu, played by Fahad Fazil. But instead of rejecting him, some dominant caste online groups celebrated Ratnavelu as a symbol of caste pride. They shared fiery edits of his character with mass hero music, despite him being the villain of the film. And that contrast matters, because it shows that the cinema itself can't guarantee anti-caste progress. Context and reception still matter. Meanwhile, Malayalam cinema is going through this reckoning more slowly, which is why initiatives like the KSFDC's SC, ST and women filmmaker funding are so crucial. The scheme Adur criticized was not random largesse. It was one of the few state-backed efforts to make filmmaking accessible to those historically excluded. Women, Dalit, Adivasi filmmakers, many of them first-time directors, finally had a path in. And some of the films that emerged from this program weren't just technically competent. They were bold, experimental, and politically sharp. Several of them also went on to win prestigious awards. The women won awards. Yes, Mr. Adur, they did. Adur, with all his stature, could have welcomed this movement. He could have recognized it as part of cinema's evolution. Instead, he asked for the funds to be slashed. He called the filmmakers untrained. And just like that, the idea of opening the gates was recast. It was recast as a threat. But maybe that's the real discomfort for the old guard. Not that these filmmakers are unprepared, but that they no longer need permission.